Okay, in this video we're going to do shooting. Okay, so that we can shoot enemies or whatever it is we want to shoot. Now, there's loads of different ways of directing shots, but I'm just going to keep this simple. You're going to be able to shoot left and right. Okay. When we shoot an enemy, we're going to broadcast a message saying we've got some points. So I'm going to start off by just setting up a message type. So I'm going to extra messages. Remember, that's in setup, loading and storage folder, extra message types. And I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. I'm going to do copy the summary tag and a message type, and then just paste that at the top. It'll moan, and I'm going to change the name. I'm just going to call it points. Copy it across, and I don't actually need to change the summary bit because it's the same summary. Okay, so that's step one, just getting that set up. Right, now we're going to create a bullet sprite. Although, no, we'll create the bullet sprite in a minute. What we should really do is we should set up the code for what should happen when the enemy gets killed. So if we do go to our enemy sprite, so currently it's collision active, okay, but what we want to do is if this sprite gets killed, we want to get some points for that. Okay, so like we did for the coin, what we're going to do is we're going to create a method. So we're going to say public void. So I'm in enemy, public void, and I'm going to call it destroyed. Not going to have any parameters. Put my left brace in, press enter, get my gap. I want to play a sound effect, and it's the explode sound effect. So I'm just going to go to assets and get the name of that again. Still highlighted from last time. Copy that. Go back to enemy. So I'm going to say gm.audiomanager.play effect explode. So that's going to happen. And I want to broadcast points. Okay, so I'm going to say message burst dot instance dot broadcast message extra messages dot points. And I'm just going to put 1,000 in here. Okay. So do those points. Right, okay, so what we'll do is that if we detect collision between a bullet and an enemy, we'll call this routine. We'll also need to make sure we kill the enemy. So let's kill the enemy. And we'll just say destroyed, and the enemy will handle what happens when it gets destroyed. Okay, it's doing the killing for us as well. Okay, right, so the other thing we need to do, so we've done that, is handle the player. Okay, so let's go back to player. There's a couple of things we need to think about. We're gonna need to know how fast the bullet's moving. Okay, so I'm just going to go up to the top of player, and I'm going to get some make some fields up for various things to do with the bullet. Okay, so I'm just at the top where the other fields are, and I'm just going to say private float bullet speed equals, we'll just put a number in here. We want it faster than what the player moves, so let's make it 300. We'll need to have a direction. Now, it's very important that we keep track of what direction we were shooting, because we might not move. Okay, so we could, when we move left and right, we'll know which way to shoot. But if we stop moving, we'll still need to know what way to shoot. So we're going to create a private vector2, because that's how we hold direction. I could have done it with the float, but I'm just keeping it a little bit flexible in case I want to shoot up and down. So I'm going to call it shoot direction, and by default I'm going to shoot towards the right. So I'm going to create a default value. So new equals new vector2 1, 0. Okay, so that will, when I first come on screen, I think because my sprite is facing that way, I will shoot if I just press the enter key to the right. So remember, positive is right, negative is left when we've got the X value. We'll also want to restrict how many bullets the player can shoot. Okay, so let's have a private int, and we'll call it max bullets. And I'm going to set that to 4. Okay, just that's arbitrary. Depends on your game. If you're going to have maximum bullets, if you want an infinite number of bullets, just have 100 or something like that. It's up to you. Okay, so they're just a few bullet things that we need to take care of. Right. So the only other code we need to worry about now is actually performing the shoot action and creating the bullet. So we're going to do that in the we could just put it in the move routine that we've got down here where we do key check-in and we update this move direction. Yeah, that's just for simplicity's sake. We'll put that at the bottom. Okay. Should we put it at the bottom? If we put, I might put it in a separate bit. Right, let's go back to the constructor for the player. Okay. Right. I want this to happen. I want to check for bullets after we've moved because that might alter the direction we're facing. So I'm just going to put a blank line after the update callback move, and I'm going to put another update callback in. Update callback, and I'm going to say shoot. Okay, that doesn't exist, so I'm going to create that. So control full stop, generate method play.shoot. Now that will have created it near the top. Okay, so here it is. Right, so what we need to do, there's two things. We need to update the shoot direction, okay, which we should do first. And then if the players pressed their shoot key and they haven't reached the maximum bullet count, then what we can do is we can create a new bullet. So let's do the update in the direction. So when the player moves, every time we do our update, we set the move direction. Okay, so we can say if move direction is not equal to vector2.0. So if we've moved, then we'll update our move direction. Okay, we're only interested in the X. So we'll do an extra little check to make sure we've actually moved in the X direction. So we can say, oh, in fact, let's just change this. So if we say move direction dot X, if it's not equal to 0, so it's either 1 or -1, then we'll update our shoot direction. Okay, so we'll say shoot direction dot X equals move direction dot X. What we're doing there is we're just making sure that if we have changed the way we're facing, that we reflect that in the way that we're going to shoot our bullets. If we've gone up and down, then that shouldn't affect the direction we're facing, so we can strafe. Okay. Right, so the next thing we want to do, so we've made sure that we're shooting in the right direction. Now we want to check to see if we want to shoot. Now I'm going to use left control. So I'm going to say, no, I won't use left control. I'll use left alt, I think, or A. No, I'll use A. That's all right. Doesn't matter. Obviously, your keys you use are up to you. I'm just trying to keep it sensible. So I'm going to say if they've pressed a key, i.e. just pressed a key, and the key was keys.A, that's what I'm going to use for shoot. I'll just use S because it's S for shoot. Then we're going to create a bullet. Okay, so we're going to press enter, open our left brace, press enter to start typing our code. Right, so we're now going to create a bullet. Now we want Visual Studio to help as much as possible in creating this class. We're going to get it to do all the work. Okay, so we're going to say sprite s equals, what this will do is it'll trick it into doing the inheritance for us because a bullet's going to be a sprite. Okay, I'll delete the sprite s in a minute, but I'm just going to do it so it does all the work. And I'm going to say new bullet. And we need to pass it the player who shot, because we will need some information from the player in things like its position and things like that. There may be other things we want to know, where its right hand side is. If we want to tidy the bullet, so I'm going to do simple bullet. But we'll pass it that in case we need any information. We need the shoot direction. so we know which direction we're shooting. We need to know how fast we're going to shoot, so that was shoot bullet speed. I can't remember what I call that, bullet speed. And we need to know what level we're in because we don't want the bullet to go through walls. So we'll have to pass it our level reference, which is called level. Okay, so bullet doesn't currently exist. So we're going to do control full stop, and we're going to say generate class for bullet in template.game in new file. It's the new file one that it's going to create. And you can see it's giving us a little preview. It's going to set all the parameters up. It's going to create fields. We'll delete some of those fields because we don't need them. We don't need to keep them. We only need them temporarily. But we'll get it to create that. So we're going to press enter on the new file one. So at the top, it's now created that. And if we just click over to the bullet, you can see it's done the inheritance for us there. It's added some things from the framework. One that we'll want to add, so let's just add that first. We say Microsoft.xna.framework.audio. We want to play a sound, so we'll have to have the audio library in. Okay, right, let's quickly just go back to player, because now I did this cheeky thing with the sprite s equals. I can delete that. I don't want it. I just want to create a bullet and forget about it. Okay, so I'll just get rid of that. That was just to get it to do all that work for me, and it did. It did it very nicely for me. Right, okay, let's go to bullet and get rid of some of the things we don't want. Right, so we don't want the bullet speed to be retained. We're going to use it, but we don't need to keep it. So we'll delete that field. We do want to know the level. We might want to keep a reference to the player depending on what we do. Okay, so I'll just leave that and then we'll kill the bullet. No, I won't. I don't want the player reference. So the only one we want to keep is player. Okay, so that breaks 3 of these lines. So let's just delete the 3 lines that are broken. So we store the reference to the player, to the level, sorry. Right, we are creating a sprite, so we must make sure we add this to the game engine. So add sprite this. We need to define a frame. So in the game engine, there are some predefined textures, and one that's useful is a small circle. So we can say frame.define text.circle 4x4. I want to set its position, so I'm going to say position 2D equals the player dot center. So I want the center 2D of the player. So that ignores alignment of the player. It actually finds the true center. I want to set up the velocity for the player. So I'm going to say velocity, and we're only shooting in the x direction. So we can say velocity.x equals shoot direction. That's the parameter dot x times the bullet speed. Okay, so that'll give us a value pixels per second. Okay. Right, so the other thing we want to do, we want to destroy when we hit wall. So let's just set that up. So that'll just be an update callback plus equals wall check, we'll call it. So it doesn't exist, so let's create that. And all we need to do, we should have all the things already built. We made some like little collisions check bits of code. So we're just going to say if level dot hit wall center 2D, so our center of the bullet. So if that's true, then what we're going to do is we're going to kill the bullet. We want it to just disappear. But I'm actually going to play a sound effect. Okay, so I'm going to play an effect, but I'm going to show you something different. I'm going to use the shoot sound, which I will use in a minute when I oh well, let's just kill the bullet when it hits the one. We'll come back to that in a sec. Okay, let's go back to player. So whenever I shoot, I'm actually going to make a sound. Okay, so in my shoot code, when I press the key, I'm going to generate the bullet, and let's play audio manager.play effect, and the sound effect I want is called fire. Okay, so let's just run this. So we've got a shooting, we've got a bullet. There's no collision detection with anything, no sprites or anything, but it shouldn't go through walls because we've done this little wall check. Okay, so let's just run this. Venture little run. So I haven't moved, so when I press S, it's shooting that way. There you go, there's the shoot sound. It's not moving very quick. But you can see it stops when it hits the wall. And I can shoot as fast as I can press the A key. Okay, at the minute. But let's make a sound when we hit the wall. And we're going to do it using the same fire sound, but we're going to modify it. So I'm going to show you something clever. So you must make sure you've got this using Microsoft XNA Framework Audio library at the top. Right, so after we've killed the bullet, we're going to say sound effect instance, SEI, that's what I always call these, equals gm.audiomanager.play effect, and we're going to play the fire effect, but we're going to modify it. Okay, we're going to alter its pitch. Now pitch can vary from -1 to +1, and theoretically this can lower the sound by 1 octave if you're into music, or increase it by 1 octave. So it can't go below -1 or 1. If you put a number bigger than that, it'll throw an error. Okay, but we can change the pitch. So I'm going to make it a more high pitch noise. I'm going to mess about with the volume. I'm going to drop the volume so it's not as overpowering as the bullet normal volume. So I'm going to set it to 40% of normal volume. Okay, so that allows, I can mess about with sound effects, and you can dynamically change sound effects to like that wow effects and things like that. So it's like music, anything, you can mess about with them. So let's just try that and see what happens when the bullet hits a wall. So you get like a real squeak. Because it compresses the sound, effectively changing the pitch. That's how it does it. Okay, so that's that. Right, so we've got a bullet. We want it to hit enemies. Okay, so we need to make it collision active. So let's go back up to the bullet constructor and set all the collision code up. So collision active equals true. We want the bullet to handle detection of hitting things. So we're going to make it collision primary equals true. Okay, so we need to set up the collision callback. So let's type callback, collision callback plus equals struck enemy, or struck things, I'm going to call it. I can't think of any better name than that. I'm going to call it struck things. Right, it doesn't exist, so let's do control full stop. And we want to generate method bullet struck things. So it creates that. So this is exactly like we had for the player collision. We'll do a test to see what we've hit. So we can say if hit is enemy, because you might want to do different things. Okay, right. So we're going to press enter, left brace, press enter again so we can start tapping our code. We want to kill the bullet, so we're going to say kill. Now you can say you can say this dot kill to refer to the object that you're working with. So we're working with a bullet, but you don't have to put that in. That's just for a clarity thing. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to say, right, okay, we've got an enemy. Let's do exactly what we did when we did the coin. We're going to get a reference to the enemy. So we're going to say enemy E equals, and then we're going to make a cast. So we put in parentheses enemy, and we say hit. So we say treat that sprite called hit actually as an enemy because we know it's an enemy. So we can now say E dot, and I think it's destroyed, I called it, destroyed. Okay, so we've destroyed the enemy. So that runs that routine in enemy, which we've got here, that broadcasts the message and does the explosion sound. So let's just see if this actually works. And then we've only got one more little bit to do. So I should be able to shoot. I keep forgetting it's. There you go. Nice explosion sound from asteroids. But the points aren't going up. So obviously we've got to put something in game setup. Now we heard some squeaks there. And obviously those squeaks were squeaks from the bullets hitting the walls that are right on the far right hand side of the screen. Okay, so let's just put a little bit of code in game setup. So if we find the constructor for game setup, we need to subscribe. So let's put another subscription in. So message bus dot instance dot subscribe extra. I don't know what I've done with my keyboard now. It's just, oh dear, something went wrong. I caught a key there. Extra. Oh, I've done it again. Oh, fingers are going funny. I'm catching function key. Extra message types. Dot. And I think it was points. I think I called the thing. Now, so we've got a routine called accept points. So actually, when we get this message, let's just look at it. There's accept points. Just picks up the points and adds it to the score. We want the exact same thing. So I'm actually going to, from this different message, I'm going to run the routine accept points. Okay, so my points will go up now. So let's just run this and verify it does. And then we've only got one more thing that we need to set, and that's to limit the number of bullets. So when I shoot that, my points should go up by 1,000. Nice one. Okay, so the other thing I want to do is restrict the number of bullets. So if we go back to player and our shoot code, we're just saying if they press the key, shoot. But we had at the top a field called max bullet. So we only want 4 bullets active at a time. So what we need to do is we need to say, right, okay, yeah, if they press the key and, so let's change the if, we put and is double ampersand. And then what we're going to do is something called a static variable. Now we talked about these, okay, when we're talking about object-oriented and different types of variables and things. So we're going to have a static variable in bullet, and the bullet's going to keep track. So we're going to say bullet dot active is less than max bullets. Okay. So active doesn't exist in bullet, so we're going to get to create it. But Visual Studio is really clever here, and it will create a proper static variable for us. So we're going to say control dot. Now it defaults to property. This is actually what we want because we want to be able to read the value outside a bullet, but it's only the bullet that should be allowed to update this value because the bullet knows when a bullet dies and the bullets know when they're created. So we're going to create this as a property. So let's just press enter on property. Okay, so that'll, we don't have to do any other work. We're just saying have we reached maximum bullets? The bullet is going to do all the work. So let's now go back to bullet. And we'll see down at the bottom, or wherever it's put it, oh, it's put it here. We've got this. Now, don't worry about the format. All this does is says, right, publicly, we can get the value of active, but only internally to this bullet class can we set it. Okay. So we can actually change that internal to private or private if you can't type properly. So we'll change that to private. And you'll see what we're going to do. So we've got two things to do. Whenever we create a bullet, we're going to add one to the count. So we're going to say active plus plus. So that adds one. Whenever we kill the bullet, so we've got two places where we kill. We kill the bullet here when we struck an enemy, and we kill it where we hit a wall. So we could put the code in twice, but we're going to do something different. We're going to create another callback, okay, called a funeral callback. So this happens whenever a bullet or a sprite dies. So we can say funeral callback plus equals, and we'll just call it I died. Okay. So it doesn't exist, so let's do control, full stop, generate method, bullet, I died. We need to reduce the number of active bullets. So we're going to say active minus minus. Now, static variables are very clever in that there's only one copy of it that is shared among all the so if you've got 1,000,000 bullets, we only have one variable called active, and all the bullets can see it. So they've got access to adjust the value. So whenever they're created, it can go up. So it's it's globally available. Okay, but only the bullet, the way we've got this set up, because it's private to be set, only the bullet can change the value of it. But we can read it. Okay, so that should limit us to 4 bullets on screen at once. Okay, so let's just, if you don't need that, you can ignore this part. But let's just run through that. So I'll do it this way. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me move a bit further away. Still see the edge of the wall. Right. So I'm going to try and spam the button as fast as I can now. And you see, I can't spam a fifth bullet until one of them's destroyed. Okay, so that's how you do bullet limits. I think that's just about it for the video. So we've done our bullet. We've restricted the number of bullets. We're making sounds. We've messed about with the sound a little bit. We've done our point update. And I think we don't need to do any more. So I'll leave that there.